What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Buying your first home can be very confusing. It may seem overwhelming and you might be scratching your head wondering where to start. So in this video, I'm going to break down step by step what you need to do to start your journey to owning your first property. Step 1 is deposit. You're going to need to save for a deposit, but you might be asking yourself, what is a deposit? Typically, you're going to need around 10% of the value of the property, and that's going to be used as a down payment on the home. That's called a deposit. So if you're buying a property for about $400,000, you're going to need at least $40,000 deposit. If you're going to spend $700,000, you're going to need to show $70,000 in savings. And on top of that, you're also going to have saved up enough money for stamp duty. Now, if this is your first home, you may not even be familiar with stamp duty, so let me explain. Stamp duty is a tax that the state government charges you to buy a home. Now, depending on which state you live in, this can range from anywhere from 3% right up to 5.5% of the value of the property. Just depends on which state you live in. So if you're going to spend $400,000, you'll need roughly $12,000 to $20,000 in savings to pay for stamp duty. Now, there is a first homeowners grant. So if you are a first home buyer and you've never purchased a property before, then you may qualify for the government's first homeowners grant. This grant says that if the value of your first home is under $600,000, then you don't have to pay any stamp duty. And it's a great initiative that's been set up to help people like you, first home buyers, get into the market with less savings. Now, it is aggregate. So if you're looking at spending up to $750,000, then you're going to pay a proportion of stamp duty from $600,000 to $750,000, depending on the final sale price. Now, to qualify for this government grant, you do have to live in the property as your principal place of residence for at least 12 months. But there is something really cool about this grant that many of you may not know about. Everyone thinks that you have to move into the property immediately and live in it as your principal place of residence. But in reality, you only have to move into it within the first 12 months. What this means is that if you were still living at home with mum and dad, being a good little saver, you could actually buy your first home, rent it out for the first 12 months, continue to save some money, pay down the mortgage, and then move into it. And you would still qualify for the first homeowners grant, which is a fantastic incentive that so many people do not actually know about. Step 2, finance. You're going to need finance, and I can't tell you the number of people that I meet at properties who tell me that they're ready to buy, but they don't have finance approved. And let me tell you, if you don't have finance approved, you are not buying a property. So many people, I was one of them when I got into the housing market. I would go onto the banking websites, I would use the home loan calculators, I would put in my income, how much I earn, and then it would spit out a number and say I qualify for a mortgage of X. But it doesn't take into account so many variables, like all your monthly living expenses, like how much you spend on monthly subscriptions, how much you spend on Uber Eats, how much you spend on getting your hair cut, how much you spend on entertainment, what type of job you have, whether you have good credit or bad credit. There are so many variables on that website that they simply don't take into account. So you may end up being very disappointed. You think that you would qualify for a home loan of $300,000, and the reality is once you find the property, you go to get your formal approval and then realize you only qualify to borrow $250,000, which is what you don't want to do. The first thing you want to do is get finance approved. And at the moment, banks are taking anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks to get a pre-approval. So you might find a property that you really like, that you actually want to purchase, but you don't have finance approved, which means that you're going to consistently miss out on opportunities. Now, getting your pre-approval will last 3 months. That means you have 3 months to purchase a property from the time you get approval, and the amount that you've been approved for will be guaranteed, even if there is another interest rate rise. Now, I've bought quite a few properties in my lifetime, and to be honest, I've never dealt directly with the bank. I typically and always use a mortgage broker. The reason I do that is because the banks are only going to offer you products that they currently have. They're not going to necessarily offer you the best interest rate. They're only going to offer you a product which they want to sell you. Now, mortgage brokers sometimes work with up to 30 different lenders. So depending on your personal circumstances, they'll choose which bank suits you. Now, the other negative with just going directly to a bank is that when you go to get a formal approval, they will lodge your application. So hypothetically, if you asked the bank for $500,000 home loan and then they came back and only gave you a pre-approval for $450,000, that is lodged in the system. So you might then try to go to another bank to apply for another home loan for $500,000, and it's automatically going to be flagged that you were not approved for $500,000 with that previous lender. With a mortgage broker, however, they will accumulate all of your information, put in all your living expenses. They will have a very good idea about just how much money you will be able to borrow. And then based on that, they'll then go to the preferred lender, which they think will give you the finance. There are also so many loan documents you're going to have to sign, paperwork you're going to have to do. And so a mortgage broker will take care of that all for you. The mortgage broker will then break it down for you, make it very easy for you to understand, explain it to someone who's obviously never purchased a property before so it will make sense, and it just makes the entire process so much less stressful. Step 3 is legal representation. Before you even look at buying a home, you should look to find a good conveyancer. Now, these folks handle the sale once you buy a home. However, they also do contract reviews. Now, a contract of sale is like a roadworthy certificate for every property which is sold in Australia. It's going to tell you whether it's a freehold, if there's a mortgage, if there's a caveat on it, if there are any easements on the property. It's going to tell you the outgoings like council rates or if there's an owner's corporation. Everything you need to know about the property is going to be contained in this contract of sale. Now, I've seen contracts which are 40 pages. I've seen contracts which are 400 pages. So if you're a first home buyer, the last thing you want to be doing is spending hours reading through a contract that you simply do not understand. So if you do form a relationship with a conveyancer, often they will do free contract reviews on the proviso that you do use them once you purchase a home. And I can guarantee you're going to need contracts reviewed because you're not going to purchase the first property that you look at. It's going to probably take quite a few months to do that. And unless you do get the contract reviewed, you're not going to feel comfortable enough to make an offer. There are also so many general conditions and special conditions which are attached to the contract, and all of those conditions favor the vendor or the person selling. And so some of them try to sneak in little clauses which are not too favorable for you as a purchaser. So you want your conveyancer to flag those with you. So when you do go to make an offer, you can put it with a condition, removing some of those special conditions. It is so important. I can't emphasize that enough, how you need to get a good conveyancer. Step 4 is research. Now, the next thing you want to do is start researching the suburbs that you want to buy. Now, often people will simply look at the suburbs that they want to live in, maybe where they grew up, it's close to their friends and family. But I think you want to get a little bit more technical than that. If you want to look at information on the suburb's capital growth, what the average sale price is, what the average rental yield is, then you might want to dig a little bit deeper. Now, you can obviously go onto the big websites like Domain and realestate.com, which have suburb profiles, and they'll give you a very helicopter view of the information. However, I find these websites can be quite time consuming and don't offer the most detailed information that I'm looking for. There is another website which I use, and they haven't sponsored this video, but it's called Your Investment Property. Now, this is an incredible website. It's super easy to use. You can type in any suburb in Australia and it will tell you what the yearly annual growth has been, the average sale price, whether for a house or an apartment, rental yields, how many people rent in the suburb versus how many people own, and it's so easy to navigate. And I think this is a really helpful tool for anyone looking to purchase a property, not just first home buyer, is to research the suburb that you are looking to invest in. Because let's face it, everybody wants to live where they want to live, but ultimately you want to make sure that you're making a good investment as well. Something that's going to have long-term capital growth, something that's going to continue improving value. Step 5 is looking for a property to purchase. So you've saved your deposit, you've got your stamp duty put away, you've got your finance approved, you're working with a good conveyancer, you've done all your research on the suburbs that you want to live or invest in. Now's the time you want to start going to open for inspections and looking at properties. Now you want to go and look at every property which is on the market in your price range, even if you don't think that you'll buy it. This is called market research. And the reason you want to look at least 20 properties before making a decision is because how are you going to understand what's good value and what's not good value? How are you going to be able to tell why some properties are worth more than others? You also want to look at properties which are less than you're looking to spend, and you want to look at properties which are more than you're wanting to spend. A lot of people, first home buyers in particular, are not going to be buying their dream home. You're most likely going to add value by doing a small renovation. Think about it. If you are looking to buy an unrenovated property for $500,000 and you want to renovate and add value, how much would you know to invest on that renovation if you don't know how much it might be worth once you're finished the renovation? Which is why it's so important to look at properties which are also a higher value than you're looking to spend. This is going to help you work out exactly how much you should spend on the property and how much you should invest if you are looking to do a renovation. Step 6 is knowing what to look for. I could have included this in step 5, but I wanted it to be its own because really you need to understand how to look for a good deal, and this in itself is a very difficult skill to learn. Things that stand out to me: if the property has no professional photos, sometimes it looks like the agent's taking the photos on their phone. It looks awful. This could be a sign that the seller doesn't have much money and is trying to save on advertising. The second thing to look out for is if the property is vacant. If the property is vacant, then you know they're not receiving any income on the home. So it's probably costing the owner every day that nobody's in there and every day it's not sold. The owner might have moved out for a number of reasons and they could be looking for a quick sale. The third thing that I look for is if the property hasn't been prepared for market. So they haven't invested on painting the property, they haven't got new carpet, they haven't done any renovations, or they haven't even styled the home. I'll give you a case study. I once sold a tiny one-bedroom apartment. It was only 42 square meters for $330,000. Now, it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but the reason I tell this story is that the property was on the market previously with another agent with an asking price of $300,000. And the best offer that the owner received was only $280,000, and it had been vacant. The property was vacant. It hadn't been updated in 20 years. The carpet was old. It stunk. And it wasn't even staged. Not to mention the vinyl flooring was awful. Now, I listed the property. I came in. We spent $2,000 on painting the whole thing, $1,000 on new carpet, $1,000 on new floating floorboards, and we invested $1,800 in styling. All up, the owner invested $5,800. Now, the best offer the owner previously received before this cosmetic renovation was $280,000, and I ended up selling it for $330,000. That's a $50,000 increase in value, or 18% than their last offer, for a tiny $5,800 investment. Now, if you can go out there and you find a property like this, something that's vacant, something that has no styling, something that hasn't been prepared for market, something that has terrible photographs, then you might find a fantastic opportunity to buy a property under market value and immediately increase the value of your home. They are out there. You just have to look for them. You also need to form good relationships with local agents. The reason for that is between 20 to 30% of properties which are sold in Australia are not advertised. They're sold through a process which is called off market. They have no advertising. But if you don't have a relationship with a real estate agent, you're not going to hear about these. And I know what you're thinking. I don't want to get all the spam emails for agents. So set up a new email address just for real estate. Every property you inquire on, use that email address. Ask the agents to put you on their database, and then that way you're not going to miss out on any opportunities. This is a really great way to find a good deal, because often people don't want to advertise because they're concerned they're not going to get the price that they want, or they don't have the money to invest in preparing the home for market or in advertising. This is how you might just find the diamond in the rough that you've been looking for. Now, step 8 is making an offer. Now, every agent is different when it comes to making an offer and presenting it to the vendor. Some will let you make a verbal offer, some will let you text, some will let you send an email. Me personally, and the reality is, to make a formal offer, which can actually be accepted, is you're going to have to sign a contract of sale. Now, the seller can only accept an offer on a contract of sale. So in my business, when a buyer wants to make an offer, I don't present verbal offers. I don't present offers in text or email. I make every buyer sign a contract of sale and present it to the seller on a contract. On the contract, it will have the price that you're prepared to pay, the deposit amount, how long a settlement you're looking for, and conditions. As we mentioned earlier, there are often conditions on the contract which your conveyancer might ask them to remove. It also has in there any special conditions. You might want a subject to finance clause. You might need a subject to building and pest inspection. But all of those things that go into making your offer are going to be put on the contract of sale, and that is what we present to the seller. Now, you should get comfortable with signing a contract, because at some point you're going to have to. And the benefit of putting your offer on a contract is that it makes it real. So if you're wanting to offer less than the vendor is asking, it's easy to say no to a verbal offer. But if it's on a contract of sale, if it sits there on the dining table, if it sits there on the kitchen bench overnight, and the vendor knows that they've got an offer that they can sign and be sold, it is so much more powerful, and it's going to help you get a better deal. Now, the agent job, of course, is to get the highest price for the seller, but you as the buyer, you want to get the lowest price. And so many times I see buyers not make offers because they tell themselves that it's not going to be accepted. The reality is, though, an agent never knows the vendor's true motivation to sell until you present them with an offer. So if you're wanting to buy a property, if you're looking to get a deal, make as many offers as you can and get comfortable doing so. Step 9, you've just bought your first home. Congratulations. The offer you made's been accepted and now you need to get ready for settlement. You're going to have to send the contract to your conveyancer, send the contract to your mortgage broker, and then the reality is they're going to take care of it from here. So congratulations, all your hard work has paid off. The hours of market research that you've been doing, the 6 months of opens that you've been going to, all the weekends that you've given up, you can finally buy them back and start enjoying the property that you've just purchased. So in summary, the first step, you need to save your deposit. Step 2 is get your finance approved. Step 3, seek legal representation. Step 4, do market research. Step 5, go to open homes. Step 6, know what you're looking for. Step 7 is to build a good relationship with agents. And step 8 is make an offer. And finally, step 9, buy your first home. Well guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you found this helpful. If you did, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help the algorithm. And if you do have any other questions, please just leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you.